fourth installment of the quadrilogy coming up this weekend, UFC 283, the co-main event for the unification of the UFC's flyweight belt. We have Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Brandon Moreno, and in the last four fights for these two guys, Figueiredo beats Alex Perez, takes a short notice fight against Brandon Moreno. In that fight, kicks him right in the cup, loses a point, it ends up as a draw at the end. That was a fight in the night, brother.
One of the great fights of the year.
The next fight, performance bonus win for Deiveson Figueiredo, and the third fight between these two guys, the fourth fight for Deiveson Figueiredo. It was again a fight of the night, and it was a very, very interesting one if you go back and you have a look at it. Now, Matt, for Brandon Moreno, his last four fights, Figueiredo, Kai Kara France. What? That was for the interim belt. So you'll see Brandon Moreno wearing a belt around his shoulder in that graphic. He's the interim champion. They're going to unify them. And for Moreno, a little bit of step outside from fighting the same guy all the time. And he gets to fight Kai Kara France.
And I know you know what you meant to say, but Moreno submitted
Figueiredo, and then in their third fight, Figueiredo got the win, and he got it with that fight of the night. But Matt, the fight that Brandon Moreno had his last time out, we're going to talk all about the gym changes for both of these guys. Not just for Moreno, but for both of these guys. For Moreno's last time out against Kai Kara France, I went back and I looked at the judges' scorecards before the third round. Montalvo had it tied 19-19. Judge Douglas Crosby had it 20-18 for Kai Kara France, and Sal D'Amato had it 20-18 for Brandon Moreno, but he withstood a little bit of adversity in that fight against Kai Kara France. It wasn't just...
I thought Kai was winning the early parts of that. I don't exactly remember what my scorecard was. I don't judge fights as I'm watching them, guys. You know why? Because I'm on my phone sometimes. I look away. Like, I'm not there. That's why I get so up in arms about people who complain about judging. I just don't get it. We're not there. But with Brandon Moreno, I thought he made a really good account of himself in their first fight. And there were a lot of question marks. Deiveson brought these up himself, and I thought it was really interesting. He was like, hey, the weight cut to 125 is really hard on me. You know what I just did 4 weeks before this fight? I just had another really bad weight cut. Like you brought up, he still won 3 of the 5 rounds. I know he committed a foul, and the foul could have affected Brandon Moreno. I get how all this works, but I just think for Figueiredo, there were enough excuses in that first fight to give you more confidence in Figueiredo going into the second. And that's why I was supremely surprised with how good Brandon Moreno looked. He really seemed like he focused on speed in that fight. And I think that's the big key between these two guys. And I'm going to bring that up more when I speak about the third fight as well. When Moreno focused more about just getting to the target and getting out of the way, he was having a ton of success. And he was able to frustrate Figueiredo and make him fight in a more uncharacteristic manner. And when I can't sleep at night, I watch a lot of boxing videos. And it kind of reminded me when Sugar Ray Leonard fought Roberto Duran the second time. He was elusive. He made him chase after him, which is what he's going to do anyways. But if you can make him emotional, make him fight outside of what his skill set is, you can have success. And I thought Moreno was doing a great job with his speed in the second fight. We just didn't really see it the third time around. I really thought Moreno was going to be able to build off the success he had going from their second fight to their first fight. But if anything, he seemed to stand in the pocket for that half second too long, and Deiveson Figueiredo made him pay for it. He landed clean shots.
And that's the thing, and it kind of followed him a little bit the start of the fight against Kai Kara France, and then as it built, the second round, he was back into it. The third round, well, that's when he landed that body shot, and he ended up winning the belt back. And for Figueiredo, this is where the camp change kind of comes into play. He goes to fight ready, he has the belt, and for this fight, he's had all of this time off, and there is an interim belt on the line, or there was during his absence. He goes back to Team Academy of Figueiredo, and we've seen fighters kind of gravitate to that gym. You have Zarah Fairn, who's on this card. Priscilla Cachoeira was at that gym for a little bit. Now she's training at MMA Masters, but it'll be interesting to see what the game plan's going to look like from a Figueiredo perspective, but also from a Moreno perspective, because for this fight, it was Glory MMA, and then everything happened. And then he's at Fortis MMA and the UFC PI, and he's got guys from Entram gym training with him. So he's kind of been all over the place getting ready for a fight like this. And it seems like from his Instagram, Coach Saif Saud
has been with him for the corner. So Saif Saud has been with Brandon Moreno for the last 5 weeks, and he has made the trip to Extreme Couture. He did a whole interview with Brett Okamoto. I highly recommend you go watch it. Saif Saud's a really smart guy. It's really interesting to break. He has a breakdown show, I believe, on Fight Pass. So, yeah, but Saif Saud is a really intelligent guy, and I think this gym change will be interesting because Brandon Moreno, I think his biggest asset is his fight IQ. Like, Brandon Moreno can think about 1,000 things inside of a fight that just the average viewer can't. And I've said this before. If fights didn't end by judges' scorecards, Brandon Moreno would never lose. Like, his cardio truly is one of one. There's Nick Diaz had the famous saying, I didn't lose, I just ran out of time. Brandon Moreno is very much in that camp too. Now, if Pantoja ends up fighting him, we'll see if that's the case too. It's just every single time we break this fight down, because we've done it a number of times, it just keeps on coming back to this. are we going to get the best version of Figueiredo and are we going to get the best version of Moreno? Because if we get the best version of both guys, this sounds wild, but they could very well fight to a draw. Like, that's how evenly matched they are. Now, I know, the losing a point and all that's a little extreme, but you get the idea. That's just how closely matched these two guys are. I will say this, though. If Brandon Moreno fights like the guy we saw in the second fight, that's the best version of either fighter we've seen out of all 6 of them. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Like, we've seen 3 versions of both these guys. The second version of Brandon Moreno is the best fighter I've seen out of all of them. And I think if he can recapture sort of that speed mindset of, hey, I'm not going in there to brawl with a guy like Figueiredo, because Moreno does have great boxing technique, and that's almost to his detriment. Like, he realizes how good of a tactician he is, so he'll be willing to get into a brawl. The problem is, when Figueiredo hits you one time, he's going to be able to erase a lot of the volume that you've been able to build up.
Every time that Figueiredo fights, the weight's going to be an issue. His first title fight, his first opportunity for UFC Gold, oh boy, Henry Cejudo moves up to bantamweight. Figueiredo takes on Joe B. And in that fight, he misses weight. He wins the fight, and then he goes out there and fights Joe B again. He wins the fight, and poor Joe B just has to fight.
These 2 fights were off.
Askarov, and then he retired. And it was very, very sad. But when we have a look at this one from the fans' perspective, YouTube community tab on this one, out of the votes, 53% going Brandon Moreno. Matthew says, I predict a no contest. These guys are destined to become 1-1-1 with a no contest and have every outcome possible. Kingdom says, not sure, but Craig Walker is going to be a banger. Another, point deduction. Eric Cote, Moreno was on his way to losing to Kai France before the liver kick, so I guess Figueiredo once again. Joshua Smith says Figgy by knockout this time. And Hammy says, hard to pick against Brazilian fighters in Brazil. You know how UFC judges are. You never know how they're going to be. But Matt, when it does come down to this fight, I don't know what Figueiredo is going to look like at 35 with the time away. Yeah. I expect he's going to look pretty good. And I would think in Brazil, the weight cut hopefully going to kind of suit him a little bit better than traveling across the world to the States to take a fight like this. And for Moreno, I'm eager to see what kind of a game plan we get, because you kind of split camps all over the place. Saifsoud is definitely a great coach, and I'm eager to see how they gel between rounds, if obviously we make it between rounds.
I think the vibes would be pretty good between them, I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you got one guy that out of those 1,000 thoughts, I'm sure 995 of them are about fights, Legos? And the other 5 are split between Legos and Pop Funkos. But for Brandon Moreno, again, the boxing, when it comes down to it for me, I love the kicks out of Figueiredo. And obviously, if he's going to mix some of his stance switches in with his what would you call it? It just gives you so many level changes.
I'm going to pick Brandon Moreno easily.
Well, I do love what you get out of Figueiredo, and obviously you like the power that he has in a matchup like this. But in the 4th fight, Matt, what's your pick?
Okay, I'm going to pick Brandon Moreno, but I'm going to openly say this right now. You're going to have to tune in for question mark kicks, because this fight, more than any other on the card, comes down to how good or poorly these guys look on the scales. Because I know you bring it up, Figueiredo doesn't have a long distance to travel, but he is 35 years old, fighting in a weight class that isn't very good to people in their mid-30s, especially with the weight cut. So I'm ever so slightly going to pick Brandon Moreno, but these guys are fighting for a 4th time. It's not like one is all that much better than the other one. Like, these are as closely matched up championship caliber fighters as you have in all of the UFC, regardless of weight classes. I'm so excited to watch this fight for the 4th time.
Should be a great fight. We're in disagreement. I do have Deiveson Figueiredo in this one, but I think it's going to be an amazing pairing, and more so than any. We want to hear from you down below. Hit up that comment section. Let us know who you have in the 4th fight between Figueiredo and Moreno. A big-time light heavyweight title fight in the main event. Glover Teixeira taking on Sweet Dreams Jamal Hill. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say,
let's get into it.